we have to hold out hope. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is just that if we don't have hope, then we don't have anything.
Yeah,
And I've
exactly.
said that for years, And you actually you taught me that. One of the great things that you taught me, Alistair, is that
Yeah.
those that hold gold are typically a lot happier.
Yeah.
And since you told me that, I've really paid attention to that aspect of the psychology and the sociology of people, and you
Mm.
can almost tell who's holding precious metals in their portfolio or in their pocket and who isn't.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
Have
Yeah.
you been able to pick up on any of that over the years?
Well, yes, I have, and there is another aspect of it, and that is that if you save in gold and you release gold in order to spend, then your spending habits change quite radically. You begin to watch prices quite closely. Um, and you sort of think, well, do I really want to waste gold on buying this product when I can buy it cheaper in the next store because they've got a buy one get one free offer or something like that. So you become a bit more mean, perhaps you could say. You could say that it sort of makes you a bit more mean. But what it does
I
actually
would
is
say
it
savvy, not mean.
savvy. Yeah, well, I'll go with savvy. I'll go with savvy. But what it does is it turns you from being a compulsive consumer into a considered consumer. I think
Mm.
that's not a bad line, actually. I just made it up, but I think that's it. That encapsulates it. You don't just go out and buy things just for the hell of it. You really get a bit more careful with your money.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Friday, March the 27th, 2020. And I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back someone to the show who has taught me an enormous amount about the precious metals, gold and silver, and how they interact in our lives and in our society, and the importance of holding them for a multitude of reasons, not just for the protection of purchasing power, but for various aspects of our lives. And he is someone who I hold in very high regard and very high esteem. Love the way he thinks and the way that and the research and analysis that he does is second to none, and I mean that sincerely. And he is the head of research, and I'm speaking for Gold Money, and I'm speaking of Mr. Alasdair Macleod. Alasdair, welcome back to the Daily Coin.
That's very much my pleasure, Rory.
And in the meantime, I want to kind of shift gears, Alasdair, because one of the things that I've in the past, I'm not sure if you still are because it's been so long since we've talked, but in the past you were in fairly close contact with some of the Swiss refineries, and you were talking with these folks on a regular basis. We just learned a few days ago that three of the largest uh, gold refineries in the world that just happen to be on the border of Italy, that they've shut down for a minimum of 1 week on a couple of them, and then once has said that's announced they're going to be shut down for 2 weeks. And then we just learned yesterday that the Rand Gold Refinery down in South Africa is going to be slowing down their production. So now we have four of the largest refineries in the world, gold refineries, that are either slowing their production down or shuttering their production for the next couple of weeks. And as you and I both agree, that the couple of weeks is going to turn into another couple of weeks and another couple of weeks, and it's not going to end anytime in the near future. What how do you see this piece of the supply chain fracturing all of the gold market in particular?
Well, it's interesting because suddenly there's a hell of a panic on. I mean, we've had the exchange for physical boys who basically intermediate between people who have got long contract, usually long contracts. It can be either way on COMEX, whereby they managed to shift them off COMEX into London.
Yes.
And that has broken down. I mean, we hear that several of them have made enormous losses. They haven't been able to close the position, and they're going to leave the market. Why has this happened? Well, we're told it's because nobody's air freighting 400-ounce bars over to America to be rendered into 100-ounce bars for the COMEX faults. I'm sure there's an awful lot of truth in that. I think your point about the closure of refineries is very well made, because that is the underlying problem. And I was amused to see that the London Bullion Market Association put out a press release last night. And I'll read the salient bits to you.
Yes.
It said that the LBMA has 72 accredited good delivery gold refiners located in 31 countries. This global reach means that while a few refiners have suspended production, the other refiners are ready and able to accommodate the industry's needs. Really? I mean,
we'll see.
For a start, as you rightly pointed out, three of the four big Swiss refiners, who really dominate the refining industry globally, they've shut down. And forget this idea they'll be open in a week. I mean, they're on the border with Italy. They have Italian workers who cross in to Switzerland to work for them. They are not going to open for at least another month, 2 months, 3 months. I don't know. Just assume they're shut until further notice.
Wow.
Then we've got, as you rightly pointed out, the Rand refinery. There will be other refineries around the world who are facing exactly the same problem. And not least, but the people who dominate the physical market now, the Chinese, they don't export anything.
Exactly.
So, if you're looking at a total of about 4,200 tons, including scrap recycling, I think you probably cut that in terms of feed into the market, but to probably somewhere between, I don't know, I would guess somewhere between 1 and 2,000 tons, and probably closer to 1 rather than 2. So this is quite serious. Now, the other problem, which nobody's really picked up on yet, and I think we'll see this next week, is that a friend of mine called Paul Malcrist, who wrote for the Thunder Road Report going way back. I don't know if you remember that one.
No.
He's done a lot of research on the ownership of bullion in the London vaults, and he released a report recently for a new company he's working for called Hardman and Co. And in that, he works out that the total gold in London vaults, he reckons, is about 8,300 tons, which is roughly he did this a few weeks back. And this is more or less what the LBMA is saying. Because the LBMA said that they've got 8,263 tons in London, giving plenty of liquidity. I mean, this is complete rubbish, because of that, a lot of that is official gold. In other words, monetary gold stored on behalf of central banks. You've got ETF gold held in London. You've got gold held by institutions like some of our, on behalf of some of our customers. We've got gold in London. Swiss banks have got gold in London, and so on and so forth. High net worth individuals have got gold in London. And Paul reckons that the actual float in London is less than 1,000 tons. So this idea that you've got 8,263 tons that can be available to sort out the liquidity problems in COMEX is completely wrong. And the problems that we have in the paper market, because that is wrong, are going to persist, and they're going to persist big time, particularly when you look at how the pricing is at the moment. You go out and try and buy some gold, or silver for that matter, there is nothing available for the retail market at all. If you want to go out and buy 1 kilo bars, they will say, well, we can sell you 1 kilo bar, but the price is going to be this, and delivery, we hope, will be in 3 weeks' time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the premiums now being charged tell us that the right price for physical bullion is way above that indicated in the paper markets. So What's going to happen? Well, the answer is the prices in the paper markets, because they lack the liquidity, are just going to have to rise where the indicated level is in physical markets. So it's the market is about to break down. I think it really is. There is another aspect of this, and that is I don't know if you noticed, but on the gold side, they managed with the smackdown starting in February and running into this month. They managed to get the open interest on COMEX down from just under 800,000 tons to a current level of around about 504. Sorry, not tons. 800,000 contracts down to around about 540,000 contracts. So that is a major, major reduction. But when you
Yes.
look at the underlying ownership of the shorts and longs, you see that the bullion banks are roughly where they are average short. They haven't recovered their positions at all. So they don't have any ammunition, any firepower, if you like, in the event that the market price starts rising, because the way they work it is they let the price rise, they let the speculators build long positions, and then they whack it and take out all the stops, get it all back, and it's a wonderful, profitable game.
Yes.
That game is over. It's finished. So
And that's on the gold side, is that right?
that's on the gold side. It's
Okay.
also on the silver side. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
if you look at the open interest in silver, that's come way down to I think about 140 odd thousand contracts from more or less record levels of about 240,000. Now, silver hasn't really been, if you like, the target of people trying to get out of the fiat currency system. Gold has been the target, and that is where the strains have been so public. But silver, I mean, if you look at the gold to silver ratio, I mean, that spiked up to something like 130 or something. I mean, it was just very, very sudden. And that
Yes.
just tells me that silver is incredibly undervalued, given that there is a move towards understanding that gold actually is sound money and government currencies are unsound money, and the switch is in the making.
That's
So,
and
this is going back to my assessment that we've got a John Law lookalike, and by the end of this year, the dollar and all the other paper currencies that go with it will be worthless, unless, of course, the U.S. government recognizes that it's got to return to sound money to stop the dollar going to zero, and introduce a credible gold standard. But not only will it have to introduce a credible gold standard, it'll also have to stop spending beyond what it raises in taxes. I think, and the other thing is that they would not, I think, want to do anything on the gold side that increases the power of Russia and China. Because what I'm talking about is the gold price
mhm.
reflecting the declining purchasing power of paper currencies. So measured in dollars, you're looking at something that is going to, unless they manage to stop it somehow, it's going to go to infinity. And guess who's got gold?
Right.
Russia and
In
China.
China.
So you can
Yep.
see that there is this geopolitical aspect in it as well.
And I
And the
want to
wages.
interject this
Sorry.
real quick, Alistair, because um, you bring up Russia and China, and you and I have discussed these two countries and their gold and what they're doing in relation to the Western world and their gold. We've discussed that for years,
Mm.
and the and this is part of what of my thinking, and I need your help on this. The Shanghai Gold Exchange started back, I think it was 2014, 20 somewhere in there.
It was 2002 it opened.
Okay, but everything changed around 2014, 2015 when they started internationalizing that platform, and now they have a global uh, price mechanism based on physical that's been working in conjunction with the COMEX, but there's been some decoupling over the past couple of years with the price on the Shanghai Gold Exchange versus what's going on at the COMEX. And China, as you pointed out, they produce roughly 400 to 450 tons of gold a year internally. It's dropped off a little bit. It's closer to 400, but they still have all the gold mines that they've purchased around the world to make up for their internal production. They've got all this gold that's still this physical gold that moves through the Shanghai Gold Exchange. You've got five other physical gold platforms that are either online or will be online by the end of this year, at the very latest, the first quarter of 2021. I'm saying all of this to try to get into focus what is actually happening right now. And it looks like those markets, those physical gold trading platforms could begin setting the global price if those other five platforms, Dubai, the one in India, the BRICS platform that's in Russia and that's in Moscow and Beijing, the Shanghai Gold Exchange itself, the one in Japan. You've got all of these different platforms that are, like I said, either online now or coming online, that are all going to be working off of the SGE's price setting mechanism. Am I just way off in the weeds with this line of thinking, or is that possibly what we're going to see happening? Because as anybody that's looking at the precious metals market right now can clearly see with their own eyes, A, there's very little to no product. B, what product is being offered on delay. And C, that the price that the COMEX sets globally and based on Federal Reserve note, US dollars, is not reflective of what's actually happening in the market. So am I online? Am I on target? Am I off in the weeds? Is my tinfoil hat screwed on too tight this morning?
No, you're right. I would put it sort of slightly more concisely, I think, and that is that the Chinese took a decision a long time ago to control the physical gold market,
Exactly.
and whether they did an analysis which sort of said that there would be a breakdown between paper gold and real gold. I don't know. I haven't a clue. But they have continued and persisted with that thought. And I think actually that, if I was a Chinese leader of the Chinese government or the leader of the PBOC or whatever, I think I would probably take the view that as a strategic ploy, it made sense to keep a very firm grip on the physical market of gold, which is why we've invested. I'm speaking as a Chinaman in mine production and all the rest of it. Why we're the largest miners in the world now, while we have got refining agreements with various other countries. So, those around us like Mongolia, we do all their refining and so on and so forth. We basically control not just our own gold, but as many other sources of gold as we can get hold of. And, sooner or later, if necessary, we can influence the price and take over the influencing of the price from the paper markets. Now, given that we're in a financial war with America, this is actually not a bad card to have in your hand. So I just look at it from that point of view. I mean, one of the things I don't know the answer to is that while the Chinese started off understanding the difference between fiat currency and gold, after all, in Chinese, gold, the word for gold is the same as the word for money. Don't ask me what it is, I can't remember, but it is exactly the same thing. So gold money is money, if you like, or gold, whichever way you like to look at it. So they did understand the difference. Now, they have used fiat currency to expand their industry by creating money out of thin air, which, it's until such time as people wake up to what's happening to money, it does stimulate an economy. And that was what John Law found, and that's what John Maynard Keynes found, and what the neo-Keynesians have played on ever since. I don't know whether the Chinese have lost sight of the importance of sound money or not. I think that they will probably be influenced by events. If you start getting a currency collapse, such as I have described, then I think they will rapidly revert to understanding sound money all of a sudden. Um, and it'll be interesting to see how many other countries actually go with it. I think that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization membership will be sympathetic to it. Not all of them will go with it, but I think that there will be a very strong push for them to do so, simply because with that organization dominated by China and Russia, they will not want to get out of step on the monetary side. So
Right.
countries like Iran and so on and so forth, who have always had this love for gold, which has really been driven by the weakness of their paper currency or the fact that it's not accepted. Same with India, and the same with the Chinese diaspora. I mean, countries like Indonesia. If you've got a small business in Indonesia, you don't use the local currency, the rupiah. What you do is you take your gold, which is what your savings are, and you go to a pawn shop. You get the money, you get the rupiah out of the pawn shop, go and spend it quick buying the new taxi or setting up the new shop or whatever it might be, and you pay it off as quickly as you can because you want to get your gold back. And more importantly, your wife wants you to get the gold back because it was probably her jewelry, 24 carat, that you pawned. In fact, very likely. So there is this basic Asian appreciation of the role of gold as money, which I think we have completely lost in the West. I mean, I talk to people about sound money, gold, and oh God, another gold bug. But
Yes.
we actually have lost the plot on this completely. The Chinese have not, in my view, though they have shown signs of a tendency, if you like, to embracing fiat currency recently.
It's. I really think that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which folded the Eurasian Economic Union that was headed by Russia, those two are now aligned together, and all the nation states that were in the heartland are now basically under the umbrella of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Back in 2016 or 2017, the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan went to the and had a meeting with the president of the Shanghai Gold Exchange. That meeting was for the specific purpose of discussing gold trade as settlement, gold as a trade settlement along the Belt and Road Initiative. At that time, it was called the New Silk Road. And so, as far as these nations coming on, being in line with China and Russia and accepting gold as a trade settlement, I think that that's already baked in the cake. I think that that's part of what we will see, and these nations will either A, be part of what they're doing, or B, be thrown out. India, if you remember in 2019, India, for the first time in 50 years or something, the Royal Bank of China, Royal Bank of
Of
India, I mean,
India. Yeah.
added to their gold holdings. This was a little known, little reported meeting between Xi Jinping and Modi uh, 2 or 3 years ago, where he told him that if you're going to be part of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, then you have to have more gold. Period.
Yep. Yep.
And and so that was part of, and it was just a little bit of gold that they added, but it was still, I think that it was enough to signal that, hey, we're on board with this. I may be wrong. I mean, that is definitely speculation on my part, but why else would they do that? My point is that all of these nations, I don't think that there's going to be any hesitation whatsoever if if we see the Shanghai Gold Exchange, the SGE, if we see that price decoupling from the COMEX and people starting to shift to look at the Shanghai Gold Exchange And then, in particular, if China or Russia or a combination come out and say, well, we're going to back X currency with this percentage of gold. And I don't think that anybody would have issue with that in any of those nations that fall under those umbrellas at all.
I think that's right, and bear in mind that countries like India and Pakistan, I mean, they're very populous. And if you take
Yes.
all the current members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the ones queuing up to join, you're looking at over 40% of the world's population.
Right.
These are big, big numbers. And we're talking about a population which, until fairly recently, had not really been all that productive. I mean, it was sort of stuck in, either sort of communist lethargy or, sort of ancient agriculture, particularly in places like India. So, but that's now changed. And the whole of the sort of communications over the continent mean that the real growth story, whatever happens to money, is going to be there rather than in the so-called advanced nations. I think we're taking steps backwards. Well, at the very worst, they'll probably manage to hold their position.
I think that everything is changing right before our eyes right now. And this
Indeed.
in this coronavirus, COVID-19, Wuhan Chinese coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, the implications and what it's done to the global economy, is unprecedented. I mean, and I
Yeah.
think that once we get through this over the course of the summer, that the implications are going to start unfolding, and I think it's going to be really shocking to people what's actually happened. So get gold, get silver, get serious about what's going on, because this is what we've been talking about, Alasdair, for a decade or more. I
Yep.
mean, this is it.
Exactly.
This is exactly what
Exactly.
we've been warning people about. So I could carry this conversation on for the next hour, in all honesty. I love talking to you. It's been awesome.
Well,
And
thank you. It's been great talking to you again after a long absence.
yes. Well, I promised that I've dusted off my recorder. I'm making the rounds again, and I can assure you that it won't be a year and a half before you hear from me again, or 2.5 years. Because it was October of 2017 that we last spoke,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be near that long, Alasdair. And I really appreciate all your time, and I love what you're doing with Gold Money. And you can find all of Alasdair's great analysis at goldmoney.com. Alasdair, is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
Um, Stay well, stay safe, and have some gold, have some silver. And before we started this podcast, we were discussing how psychologically to have the stability of some gold and silver in these very, very difficult times, um, the benefits of that mustn't be underestimated.
I agree completely. It brings a calm to us that you can't find anywhere else. So
Indeed.
I appreciate it, and I'll talk with you soon, Alasdair.
I look forward to it, Rory.